is everyone doing tonight? Hoping everyone is doing well. Today I have a very special guest joining me, Sean. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. It's
I
pretty.
don't know. I don't know if I'm all that special, but
So, for our listeners out there who may not be familiar with who you are, go ahead and how would you introduce yourself and where did your journey into the paranormal begin?
well, my name is Sean Kaleta. I am a podcaster. I just started a brand new paranormal research team, and I have a brand new magazine that I've created that will be coming out in November called PARA, PARA. So a lot of projects going on at one time. And I got into the paranormal. That's been a number of years ago. I've always been interested in the subject. I've always been interested in the shows. In fact, the one show that I still watch all the reruns from to this day, the one that got me in more into the paranormal and realizing that there was such a thing out there as investigative teams and that there was a way to actually get into the field was Paranormal State, my favorite show of all time. In my opinion, one of, I can count, to me, there's a big difference between paranormal investigation shows and paranormal entertainment. I can count paranormal entertainment shows. Need more than two hands to do that. But
Yeah.
Paranormal State was one of the real shows, and it showed how things really go, and so that got me even more interested. Eventually, it was probably about 4 years ago or so. I had the opportunity to join a team here local to me in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area. I interviewed for that and they brought me on board. Jenny Davis. I love Jenny Davis. Um, and they brought me on board and I was with that team here for the last several years. Um, about a month or so ago, I made the decision to leave that team. Was also doing a podcast at the time. We had 126 episodes that I was with them for, 25,000 listeners in 40 plus countries. It was a great experience. But, you know, as life is for a lot of people, changes come, and I had to make a decision on the direction that I wanted to go, and it just was not the same direction as the other two members of the team. And so I decided to part ways with them, and I moved on to some projects that I had ideas to do, but never really had a need to do them. And so now that I was going to say, Jenny, I just saw you post that you were getting on a plane. Uh, that's crazy. But so I decided to take some of these projects that I had these ideas for and put them into motion. And here I am.
That sounds like quite a journey. And that's what also one thing I tell people in the paranormal is it's normal for people to have multiple teams. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
anything. It just means, great start, but after a while, sometimes you realize things are going differently and you're ready for a change. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right, right. Yeah.
I myself have been a part of different teams. It's okay. I don't know why some people assume you
Well,
have to.
it was some people, especially with me, it was the first team that I was ever a part of. It had its ups and downs, as all teams do from time to time. But again, it just came to a point where everybody was not going in the same direction. And Danny, yeah, everybody just wasn't going in the same direction. And, we move on. And if we have success from there, we have success. If we don't, we don't. Oh, thank you, Jenny. So yeah, it is what it is. It was a little, I don't know, I want to say maybe a little intimidating, going out and trying to do my own thing. I
Yeah.
didn't know I didn't know what the results would be. I didn't know when I started announcing these projects and everything. I didn't know if I would lose friends, if people would, not want to associate with me anymore. It's just those kind of feelings, and it turned out to be the opposite. I gained a whole lot more in many different aspects than I anticipated. So, the support that I've gotten from my friends, people like Jenny Davis, is amazing, and it lets you know that you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. Do you remember what your first what one of your first, paranormal activity kinda was that happened?
I do. I've had I've had two significant experiences. The first one was at the Bell Mansion in Fort Wayne. I was part of the crew there for a couple of years. I probably spent as much time in that building as I did at my own house. Um, and I know that place inside and out. And the first real experience that I've had, that there have been times where you're like, oh, I heard something, or I thought I saw something, that everybody has those kind of experiences. But we were with, yeah, Danielle was also along with the bell. We were doing an investigation one night. It was myself and a couple other members of our team at the time, Kalani Smith, and his wonderful wife. And we had a team from Pennsylvania called Bump in the Night Society.
Mhm.
And we were down in the basement of the Bell Mansion, and we were doing some experiments trying to communicate. And one of the people said to me, thought I saw a head poke out of this doorway. Now, I've never seen that with my own eyes, as cool as that would be. But as soon as he said that, I stood up and I turned on my video camera and I walked toward the door where he saw this. So I got to the door and I'm, kind of looking around and I'm listening and feeling, if there's any temperature change or anything like that. And as I am standing in the doorway, I feel a hot, well, maybe not hot, but a warm breath on my right cheek. And I hear the at the same time. So I'm like, okay. My first words right after that were not pleasant words, but so immediately I went and I played it back and I heard it on my phone. Still have video to this day. Interestingly enough, one member of the Bump of the Night Society team was videotaping from the other side of this room that I was on and caught that audio on their uh, video as well. So not only was it caught on my equipment, it was caught on someone else's. And that was the first time that I ever had anything physical happen. There have been times where I think I may have been touched. But those are all personal experiences that I really don't have a way to prove. I can say, yeah, I think this happened. But the breath on my face, I experienced it, and it was picked up by two different devices with two different people, and quite the experience. The second experience I had was in Gettysburg last year. We were attending the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, and the team that I was a part of, along with Sean Austin and Kayla Simonton, and Mike Angus from Southern Heat Paranormal, we were investigating one of the battlefield sites, and it was kind of an isolated site. Um, we actually investigated the same location three nights in a row, and we were undisturbed the entire time. So it was fantastic. But Sean has abilities that are beyond my comprehension. Um, when you take Sean Austin with you on an investigation, he stands out to spirits. Jeremy York from Things. Um, Sean Austin stands out as a giant beacon of light to spirits. It's amazing. And I had an experience where I asked some very difficult questions of what a spirit was experiencing as Sean was directing them to go toward the light. And I received 100% Class A EVP answers. And that experience had a profound effect on me to the point where I experienced the situation. We were all like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And it wasn't until the next day when I got home and I was telling my wife about this experience, and I started bawling like a 2-year-old kid because the things that I had asked were personal things. They were religious related questions, and it hit me. But it took all that time for it to really, as I'm telling the story, it's just all coming back. And it was the most profound experience that I've had in the paranormal. Opposite end of the spectrum from the experience at the Bell Mansion. This one
Yeah.
was more personal and really hit me and spurred me to want to dive in as deep as I could and start going from the paranormal investigator side of things to the research side of things. You
Right.
know, these things happen. Well, why do they happen? How did they happen? And it proves to be a whole lot more difficult than just going out to a location with a few pieces of equipment. I'm not an equipment guy. I don't do the REM pods. I don't do the cat balls. I go in with the cell phone, which has everything I need. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big equipment guy. It's fun.
So I
It's cool to
started out with
watch.
the cell phone.
Yeah. The equipment is great. It's fun to see some of the things that people are creating out there. Guys like Austin Maynard, Sean Austin with his brand new app that he's got. They're really neat to see these things in action. But I've learned over time that eventually you have to start going to this more scientific side of things,
Mhm.
and getting more, do I want to say more secure data as opposed to just experiences. So, I mean, I'll take either. I'll take experiences too. But, I'm trying something different, especially with the new team that I just decided to put together here recently. And I want to take that more of an exploration, research, and scientific direction. So we'll see how that works out.
So what's your vision with the research aspect with your team then, Sean, since that's
Well, I don't want to sit around in a room with REM pods on the floor and cat balls in places and say, is there anyone here?
yeah,
Um, I want to go more towards measurable things. When you go to a location, when you start in a room, and I'm going to admit before I even say any of this, I want to attribute some of this to Lauren Hellickson, because here over the last weekend, I went to a convention and I sat in on one of her lectures, and some of the things that she said really hit home, and I think have kind of changed the way that I'm starting to think. Um, so again, instead of going into rooms, setting up REM pods, cat balls, and light ropes and all this other stuff, not going into a room and immediately sitting down and saying, "Is there anyone here?" Because odds are there probably already is. So the first room that you enter, immediately getting baseline data, getting temperature, getting static readings, looking around for things that would interfere with any equipment that is going to be used. And then not staying in the same place all night long. If you're in a location that has 6 rooms, limit yourself to a half hour in each room. And
yeah,
one of the things that Lauren Hellickson said too is, if you're in the room for a half hour and you've already decided previously that 30 minutes is your limit, if a spirit walks right up to you and pokes you in the eye, move on to the next room. You know, um, Taking things that are happening to you emotionally and psychologically at the time when you're going into these investigations? What is your state of mind before you begin at different points through the investigation? How are you feeling? And trying to compare your personal emotions and feelings with the data that you're collecting at the same time to see if there's any correlation between the two. Are you in a room that has high EMF? How are you feeling without, knowing, trying to compare as much actual available data as possible, but at the same time, still trying to get answers. But sitting in a room and saying, "Is anybody here? Can you can you touch that light?" That it just doesn't do it for me. You know, I look at it, if I'm a spirit and I'm walking in a room and somebody's telling me to touch that cat ball, no, why? Maybe I just want to talk. Maybe I want to be heard,
Yeah.
y- you know? So, let's do that instead of getting me to turn your pretty lights on. Not that there's anything wrong with people that use that stuff.
There's not, and that's one thing. So when I came out here to Japan, that is
Mhm,
one thing I started. So I also started learning, getting more into research side of the paranormal, due to the
mhm,
fact that here in Japan, we can't just go out and investigate. We don't have places you can investigate. You can book to investigate. There is no paranormal teams. It's more of a taboo thing here, just
okay.
because they're more superstitious than religious. So they're also more afraid of, if we make this thing angry, we don't know what to do because there's no demonologist out here. So
Okay.
it's one of those things where if it's haunted, we don't mess with it. We're gonna close it up, board it up to the public.
Mhm.
So that aspect for me, being in America, where you could book so many different places,
Yeah.
it actually depressed me. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going. I guess I will learn more about the research side so I can learn more. But
Sure.
still, I'm even going out to like parks. I'll still try to investigate due to the fact is obviously Japan is very old, so the spirits here are old as well. They don't
Mhm.
like the equipment because I don't know if it confuses them. It's just they don't like any of the equipment, like the cat
Mhm.
balls people use. Like, oh, good, touch this. Their iPods, they don't like it. People
Yeah.
like will use it in a term they'll like toy. I'm like, it's still the fact it lights up and makes noise. They're like, nah,
Yeah.
backs up. I'm like, you can't use it. They don't like it. The older ghosts, they just, at least from my experience, here they don't
Yeah.
like.
And that's something that I don't think that we really think enough of is that, when we're putting this equipment out there, man, Joe right there hit it right on the head.
Yeah,
When- Man, you're absolutely right. When you're walking around holding a camera in front of your face or watching a cat ball, who knows what you're missing? Absolutely. It's spot on. But I think one thing that we really don't think that much about is that when we're using equipment that to us is completely modern and makes sense. If I am in Japan and I'm at a location where, there were samurai deaths back in feudal Japan days or something like that, and I'm putting something on the ground that is making noise and making lights, that has got to be terrifying to someone who has
yeah,
never experienced that. No matter how much you say it's okay to touch it, it's not going to hurt you.
yeah. Of
No, I'm
course,
sorry.
they say that,
Yeah.
but they're like, it's still. I don't understand the lighting. I don't understand the noise. I
Hmm.
just. They're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. 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 I think we need to understand that when we're using this equipment, it may be completely foreign to some of these things that we're trying to communicate with. And, you know, if I'm in a house that was built in the 1800s and, the history has shown certain people that have passed away in certain time periods, they may not know what a light is. They may be
Yeah,
used to candlelight or oil lamps. So maybe those things need to start being utilized somehow. Trying different objects, candles, lanterns, oil lamps. I mean, goodness, the options are limitless, and you don't really see people doing that.
I was about to say that I wish someone sold something like that because I'd buy one just for the older ghosts to see maybe they'd be more comfortable with it. Like candle, yeah, they probably know what it is.
Hmm.
at all. They're like, I don't understand. They don't understand it here.
Yeah.
That's also why they're like, I'm not touching this. I don't. You say it's not gonna hurt me, but I don't understand what it is.
Yeah. And they don't know us. So why should they trust
Yeah,
what we're saying?
that's also what I'm saying. They're looking at me and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna take. You said it's not gonna hurt me. I'm not gonna take your word on that.
Yeah. And then there's the opposite end of that too, where, what if we are sitting in this room and we've got this equipment out and these spirits are moving about and doing their thing? But what if they can't even see us? We never
Yeah,
think of that. What if they don't
yeah.
even know we're there?
It's like the movie The Others, where
Yeah.
they didn't even know.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But yeah, yeah, you're 100% right. What if they can't see us? Or what if they think we're dead? What if they think we're the spirits? I mean, there are so many different directions to go that I don't think are being explored enough. And those are the things that I want to do with the team that I'm putting together now. Things that are different. I've taken tips from everyone from Lauren Hellickson to Brandon Alvis, trying these brand new things because it's not going to hurt. And it may come up with something irrefutable, or it may come up with something brand new that people can try. So, um, it's just going in a new direction. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, here with shadow figures, like back in the United States, I remember seeing some shadow figures and be in and out, or one of those where I thought I saw one moving, but then I'm like, maybe it's just cornered my eye, and then finally when I
Mhm.
took a picture, showed up in the picture.
Huh?
But here, it's funny because the shadow figures have no problem with just stopping and staring at you.
Hmm.
It was so weird the first time it happened. Now I'm kind of used to it if one just is to stand there and staring at me,
Hmm.
compared to United States, you're not used to it. But the first time I was walking my dog down the street, luckily I had her, because this one on the other side of the road just like staring at me, and it was clear as day, a shadow figure. And I'm looking around, and I'm just like, is this real?
Yeah.
Am I losing it? What's going on? But then my
Right.
dog at the time was still, because my dog obviously thinks that everyone's put on earth to pet her. So
Hmm.
she reacted as she sees a new person, she has to go sniff to investigate and pet her. So she was reacting as, she saw this thing, and I'm like, all right, my dog sees it, so it's there. And a lot of
Right.
people are just like, how come you don't like take pictures of it or try to talk to it? And I'm like, I've tried talking for some odd reason. Them here, if they're staring at you, it's more of a, this is my little territory, stay on the other side. I just it, they're just it's they don't like people, I guess. That's also why towards like evening and night they come out here, just because it's like it's too peoply out during the day,
Yeah.
basically. Because they tell me I don't want to talk to anyone. And I'm like, what, that's your boundary, that's your boundary. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
cross it.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've seen them in my apartment just as a, and they'll like, just as a warning of, you cross my boundary, I can come to you anytime. And I'm like, oh, I never was. Okay. Never
Yeah.
was, because I'm not gonna fight anything paranormal, because I know
Mhm.
I'd lose. And I'm like, I wasn't going to. You don't
Right.
wanna talk? I won't make you talk.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you brought up the dog, because that's another thing that we really. Oh my God, Danielle, you're reading my mind. Dogs and cats. Why are we not bringing them on investigations with us? I've never seen, as far as I can remember, I've never seen it done on a television show. I've never seen it done in person. Why are we not bringing a dog, at least a dog with us? They're more controllable than a cat, but, to an investigation with us? That could just open up a whole other thing, too. I mean, there are just so many things that I don't think we're utilizing, and they're so simple and they seem so obvious, but I think they're just not talked about enough.
Yeah, there, because especially with the stories of people are like, "I knew this room had had something in it that was haunted because the dogs wouldn't go in it, but they'd stare into it,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't stop staring, but you couldn't make them go into that room for anything, or they were scared of this little area, and I'm just like, you have a good point. Why don't we bring them into with us to investigation? And if
Hmm.
they're acting weird at one area or not want to go in a room, all right,
Right.
maybe that's where I should go and be.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
100%.
clearly something there.
Yeah. I mean, dog is a service animal. Hey, even better. But yeah, that's definitely something that I would not be beyond trying, especially a service animal. I mean, that'd be that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Going back to this, what if they are as curious about us as we are them? No, that is the
Hmm.
good thing, is because we don't know, and this got me thinking. It was Kalani the Ghost Hunter did an interview where he was investigating a place, and
Hmm.
he says, like, I obviously ask him, last what's the last thing you remember? He's like, I don't ask him how they die. I ask him what's the last thing you remember, kind of piece it from there. But I also ask him what year it is.
Hmm.
And he said, interesting, he was investigating a location, and he asked what year it is to them, and they said like 2048, which he
Yeah.
thought was weird because he was like, this is whatever year. And to them, they were in a year 2048, and they thought he was the ghost.
Yeah.
So it always makes me wonder, and it goes with like the whole time lapse kind of thing. I always wondered, maybe that's also with with some of the shadow spirits that we see, or what we think is also a ghost, is maybe it's our time lapse going on. That could also be why they're interested in looking at us, especially if you're from, I know Gettysburg also has like the perfect example of us seeing things in the past,
Hmm.
where people in a the best example I can think of is someone in a hospital that works. It's an office building now, but back in the day in Gettysburg, it was a hospital.
Hmm.
So they pressed they one lady and her coworker was leaving for the night. They pressed the bottom floor, but for some odd reason, the elevator skipped the bottom, you know, skipped that floor and went straight to the bottom and opened up. And it opened up into like it looked like they were there, clear as day. Like you and I are looking at each other.
Right.
There was nurses and doctors running around. There was soldiers obviously injured. They're trying to help, and they're like, no one was paying us attention. We were scared, holding on each other because
Yeah.
we didn't understand what's going on. Only maybe like one guy was staring at us, but he wasn't really doing anything. And I was just like, maybe that was an injured soldier who was just like, who probably accepted this is probably my time. I'm gonna die. It probably just thought you were not really there, or
Yeah.
I always wondered that. I always wondered. I don't even know what they think. The past ones seeing us in modern clothing, I always wondered what they think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many, and those are questions that I don't think a lot of people are asking too. Once you start to establish some kind of contact or even a dialogue, you know, ask ask the crazy questions.
Yeah,
I always say ask the crazy questions because why not? you know, like what do you think of my outfit? Or, but yeah, crossing I know exactly what you're talking about with Kalani. I remember that. And if I'm not mistaken, the person that he was communicating with that said they were in 20, whatever the year was a
2040.
paranormal
Some people say
investigator,
2048 or something like that. I forgot what the
something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
But if I remember correctly, that person was a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, there's just so many rabbit holes that you can dive down and ones you can make by yourself, but it makes you wonder about the layers of reality and space and time. That's a subject that's like way bigger than my brain, but um, it so many questions, and who knows if we'll ever get the answers, but we can try.
Yeah. There is here it also makes me it, here it also makes me look at things a little bit differently when investigating. Just because I mean, back in the States, you're used to just like setting up your equipment and investigating. Here in Japan, I mean, Japan. If you know anything about Japan, they're really huge into respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, if investigators who just go to a place, set up equipment, and then start to the spirit that's disrespectful, and to them, it'd be the same thing as if I came to your house, you're friendly, but knocked on your door, said, "Hey, may I talk to you?" You might
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Sure, come on in, we'll talk." Compared to here, they think if you just come in, start set up your equipment, that's disrespectful. You should, at first kind of you walk in, but right before you walk in, you should kind of give like a bow, introduce yourself, saying, "Hey, I'm Sean. I'm just here to talk to you. I'm going to set up equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you'll talk to me." It's the equivalent if I came to your house instead of knocking on your door, I just kicked it in and said, "I'm going to talk to you now."
Right. Yeah. Um, and I think doing that applies to every location, whether it's in the States, in Japan, whatever country you're in. You enter with a level of respect, and if there's something intelligent there, you're going to have probably much better results than if you, like you said, come in kicking the door down. You're in their space. So you have to show that level of respect as you're a visitor. They live there. That's their place. So you have to kind of show that level of respect. So yeah. And it would probably do some people some good to go to somewhere like Japan and experience that. Because I'm sure that's what happens when you go to someone's house that's alive. You
Yeah.
probably go in, you bow, you take your shoes off. There's a whole uh, litany of things, but yeah, showing respect is should be very high on the list.
Yeah, that makes me think. I was like, I wonder if I'd get other results instead of it's just back in the United States. If I didn't just start setting up equipment, but I just kind of introduce myself, like, "Hey, I'm just gonna set up equipment.
Hmm.
Feel free to touch anything."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Japan is awesome. I do love it here. Food wise, I feel like it's so much better just because they don't cook with preservatives and less sugar.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
health wise,
it's on my bucket list of places to visit in my life for sure.
I recommend it, especially for a paranormal investigator. But like I said, it is something you are gonna have to consider doing. It is something where you are gonna have to test your other ways of investigating besides equipment. Because like I said, uh, it confuses a lot of them, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna," especially with you being a foreigner, they're
Hmm.
not gonna believe you. Like, "It's not gonna hurt you." You're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
touching that."
Well, I've also worked in professional wrestling for over the last 15 years or so. So Japan is also a bucket list for that too. So I know that's
Yeah,
like in Japan, where professional wrestling is like baseball in the United States. So
yeah. We have a not too far from me. We have a baseball team not too far from me. I might have to visit, see one of their games, see how it compares to like back in the States, because I've always
mhm.
wondered how it is here baseball wise compared to the States, especially live games.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Now, where are you at roughly in Japan?
I'm in Nagasaki, so I'm in
Oh,
the main island of Japan, in the very
whoa!
bottom of it.
Talk about talk about some emotional and spiritual things there.
Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah, because we have just to just to the right of me, we have the Nagasaki. Not too far from me, we have the Nagasaki bombing area, and then
Hmm.
just to the north of not too far to the north of me, we also have the Hiroshima. So we also
Wow.
get a lot of the tragic goes.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I don't know if that might deter me from investigating. I don't know if I could do something like that. That's just that's a whole nother level right there.
Yeah,
That'd be the equivalent of trying to investigate at the 9/11 site. in New York, uh, slightly maybe disrespectful and probably not. Wow. Huh. Yeah, that
Yeah,
air's
and
got to
that's
be
why
heavy.
I really can't investigate unless I do more of the research side now, just because you have to be careful, especially the spirits still have the mentality of
Mhm.
no foreigners.
Yeah,
They're
I
definitely
don't blame them.
foreign.
Yeah, I don't blame them one bit.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm like, how you are in life is how you're going to be in death. So if they were worried about us
100%.
in life, they're definitely going to be the same thing in death. I'm like, I already know that there's no change in their mind. So am I going to be the one to change their mind? No, it's not going to be a thing.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, 100% how you are in life is how you will be in death. Yeah, I can't argue with that.
So where has been your favorite place to investigate?
Um, by far Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Um, so much like you can't go anywhere without there being some kind of history. So many locations that are purported to be haunted or have some kind of supernatural happenings. Last year when I went, it was only for a few days. The time this summer when I went, it was for an entire week, and I don't even think that was enough time because there's just so much. I'm a big history nut,
Yeah.
so aside from the history, there's the paranormal side, and Gettysburg has its own vibe. You can walk into a gas station and you have to realize that before that gas station was there was a battle going on this site, so much energy, so many different stories, so much to be a spirit and be able to see what they're seeing in that area would probably just be mind blowing. But yeah, Gettysburg by far is my favorite place. Um, as far as an actual location, would have to be the Monroe House here in Indiana. Um, I've been there 2 or 3 times so far. I haven't experienced anything like over the top, but I got a chance to go in the hole where they found the bones, and in the basement where, you know, I'm not, I don't do the whole quote unquote demon thing. I don't I don't get into that whole thing at all. Have I encountered things that are negative before? Sure,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't go that direction. And I'm glad to see that that whole trend is starting to go away a little bit. There was for a while there you couldn't find a paranormal YouTube video that didn't say it. There's a demon here, a demon pinched my butt, or whatever the case may be. But that's finally starting to go away. And I'm glad because I think it was really hurting the community. It was getting them clicks, but it was hurting everybody else.
That's one thing people also forget is just because is the land might be haunted. Just because the
Mhm.
building might be newer doesn't mean the land isn't haunted, and that's why you're experiencing ghostly
Sure.
activity. There have been a lot of people who their house was haunted, but they were like, I don't I'm having a hard time believing it due to the fact is we built our house.
Yeah.
So it's not like anyone lived and died before. And it's just like you don't know what happened to land before, especially like in Gettysburg. More than likely there was a battle, so I'm like it might be the
Yeah.
land from that that's still.
Mhm.
You think building a
Yeah.
house is gonna stop them? No.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason if they can enter your house or not. So it could still
Yeah.
be the land.
And then of course you start getting into the conversation. Like you had a perfect example. Like, we just built this house brand new. Well, okay, yeah, you built it in Gettysburg. Odds are there was something happening in or around the area you just built your house. But then, you start getting into the whole haunted objects thing, which is a story for another day. I have my own opinions on that, but um, residential investigations is really something that I want to start getting into as well. So that's probably one of the things that I really want to get going with as soon as possible, because there's a lot of people out there who are experiencing things that they can't explain, and a lot of them are afraid to reach out. It's becoming less and less of a stigma now for people, because the paranormal is more prevalent. You turn on Discovery Plus and you've got a plethora of shows to watch, and people are less afraid to say something nowadays, I think. But at the same time, you also have to watch out for people that are looking for their 15 minutes of fame. uh it's one of the big things that bothers me. People don't understand that. I mean, this is a whole different tangent, but I always point to Jason Hawes as the perfect example. He's not a millionaire. He's not stuffing his mattress with $100 bills. He still works at Roto-Rooter, for crying out loud. He's still plumbing toilet.
I always found
Um,
that funny.
yeah. If unless your name is Zach Bagans, you're not going to strike it rich in the paranormal. Not going to happen. But yeah, like you were saying, going back to, we don't know what the land is that we are standing on currently, or that our house is built on. Nobody really delves into that history, and that's a big part of the research stage of an investigation. That's all the stuff that you do before you even go to a location. Everybody has their stories. Everybody has their, oh, there was somebody that hung themselves in the cellar. Everybody's got their stories, but in order to get the facts, you need to do the research.
Yeah.
And I'm wanting to try and emphasize the importance of that in what I do going forward too.
Yeah, unfortunately, so over here, I get obviously in Japan, I see the videos that they're getting, especially when it comes to the paranormal. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, the majority of the videos they're seeing is the ones that are obviously fake, more than
Hmm.
views. Where you can
Yeah.
tell, especially like you don't even have to be a paranormal investigator to know this is fake. Like the
Yeah.
ones where you hear the voice coming from a room, and you're like, "I'm home alone," or "I hear my own voice calling from me the next room over," and it's a speaker,
Yeah.
and it's just like a Bluetooth speaker that they're using.
Yeah.
Or the door opens or closes on its own, and you see like the string pulling. It's like,
Hmm.
all right, so I can see why people are a little bit more skeptical. This is what you're seeing. So someone else even said that to me about being skeptic. They're just like, I'm seeing more fake stuff than I am real stuff. So if I'm seeing all this fake stuff, why would I assume anything is real? And I'm like, you have a good point. That's what's mostly on social media
Yeah.
nowadays. Or that's what's going viral. Or
Yeah.
even the ones that are clearly made with CGI.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the people that I want to go into a haunted location with me, or with another group of people. I want someone to have that authentic experience. It may be a personal experience, it may be just something that they witness, but in an environment that they know is controlled. Um, so yeah, people that have been pushed away from the paranormal because of things that they have seen that they believe are fake or know are fake. You've got to understand that there's a complete other side to that. There are people like that want to get their clicks and want to get their views. And then there are people like you, like me, like hundreds of other people out there who are doing this for genuine research and looking for answers. And some of us don't care if anybody ever sees a video that we've taken at a haunted location, you know. Um, so yeah, if people, are listening to this or watching this and you're like, I've seen too much fake stuff to even want to try. Get with someone who is legitimate and go experience it for yourself and see if you can see if you can experience what it's really like. I always said that, my idea for a television show would be one that nobody would watch because it would show what actually happens on investigations and nobody would watch it. So I understand to a point why people get into some of these shows that are entertainment shows, but it's really portraying things the wrong way. You know, Unlike Zach Bagans, you're not going to get possessed every time you go to a location. You're probably never, ever, ever going to encounter a demonic entity. These things just, it's frustrating. Like, it always has frustrated me, but it's always going to be there. So I got to deal with it.
Yeah. Like I was saying before, now that I'm in Japan, I'm doing more of the research side. So I'm
Mhm.
researching a little bit of everything. I am obviously researching a little bit of demonology, and
Mhm.
the demonologist said he's done over 25,000 cases, and he said just to put this to be more realistic about the whole how many things are demons. He's like, I did over 25,000 cases that people thought were demons, and less than 100 were.
Yeah.
So he's like,
Yep.
more than likely, it's not going to be a demon.
Right.
It might be an
Yeah.
angry spirit, but more than likely, it's not.
Yeah. And, going into locations that there's not people in all the time, or, there's active people in there. If you're going to encounter, God, I hate to even say this, but if you are ever going to encounter a demonic entity, it's not going to be in some old abandoned building, you know. But I'll get into that subject, and I probably won't stop talking. There's just things that frustrate me really bad, and that happens to be one of them.
Yeah, it's the less than 100 basically is what he's saying is it could be like an angry spirit or just a haunting. Unfortunately, a lot of people assume if it's a haunting, it must be a demon. And it's like
Mhm.
it's not actually the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Father Ken Torres. I know he was on here watching
Yeah,
earlier. He
that's what I was about to
commented.
say. I wish he was still on. He could comment about more of
Yeah,
that.
he's he's a great resource for me.
Yeah,
He sent me some books and stuff here recently, and only because I want to have more knowledge on the world of the demonic. Um, Again, it's more or less a faith based thing as well, whether or not you believe that. But I want to just add knowledge to my repertoire so that when it comes to a conversation like that, I have something that I can say, okay, well, here's what I can tell you about this. So Father Ken has been a very valuable asset, not just in that respect, but to me personally, he's phenomenal. I love that man. He's amazing.
yeah, he
And,
is.
he's participated in a couple of actual exorcisms where he's experienced some things like you see in the movies. And I couldn't sleep at night with some of the stuff he's told me he's experienced. So I, I don't know. It takes a strong individual. But those are if you encounter something negative, move on from it. It's you can't always you can't always deal with the good stuff. There's occasionally going to be some spirit or something you're communicating with that's just not a happy camper. But you don't have to start throwing holy water across the room.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a lot of demonology classes. That might be one of them I have to look in from Father James. Just because, I mean, I've done
Bishop
some
James
and
Long is another phenomenal one. Yeah.
yes. And a lot of some of them are just more of, I think, on their opinion on them too,
Hmm.
or demons, because some of them have like different information.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
also so many different kinds of like demonology studies. We've had one on the podcast where he was more of an ancient demon one, but he actually went to Harvard to learn about the ancient demons,
Yeah.
where a
And
lot
see,
of demons
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of even demonologists are like, I'm not quite sure about his knowledge on them or what on that aspect either, because they're not everyone's focused like the ancient ones.
Right. And actually, it's funny because I had Father Ken Torres on my podcast last week. I'm sorry, beginning of this week. But another thing too is that, you know, during the conversation, he brought up, okay, there are people out there who claim to be demonologists. Well, what kind of demonologist are you? You
Mhm.
know, are we talking the Christian belief demons, Buddhist belief demons? There are so many different religions out there that have their demons. Which one are you? Nobody knows everything. There's there are just too many
Yeah,
different belief systems out there, and nobody knows them all. Most people, when you think of demon, you think of the exorcist. So automatically you're going with the Catholic faith. But there is so much more than that. And that's what that's kind of what I want to get into, to just kind of expand my knowledge and find out some things that I didn't know before. So, but
see, and it's funny because she said Danielle said, "Hey, if I want to throw my holy water, I shall." Here in
yeah.
Japan, here in Japan, obviously with it being like either a Shinto or more of a Buddhist religion,
Hmm.
they use sea salt. Like
Okay.
you'll get a little bag of sea salt that might be blessed from a priest of a temple.
Okay.
They do
That's
that.
interesting.
They also give them out at funerals. So before you enter your house, you're supposed to kind of with the little baggie of salt, kind of like throw it over you to prevent them from being able to follow you into your house.
Interesting.
Yes, that's
It's
also
almost.
why I know America kind of has that same thing of when you're at you go to a funeral, you're at the cemetery, and you're supposed to stop somewhere before you go home, just in case a spirit follows you. It's not
Mhm.
you're not going directly home. Which in America we kind of have the same thing where after the funeral we go somewhere to have a meal. So like
Right.
it's almost the same thing. But they also eh, everyone also gets like the small bag of salt to throw over them before they're allowed to enter their home once they do get home, which to me is it's fascinating.
Mhm.
That's how
Yeah.
superstitious they are. Is you don't go into a cemetery unless you have any business. Obviously if you go to one and you go to the cemetery, you do the salt thing.
Mhm.
But they also believe a lot of them will carry with them, especially if you're pregnant and you're at the funeral, a mirror in your pocket or your purse because they believe because this way kind of something with the mirror kind of makes it so they can't really get to you as well. I don't know if the mirror is supposed to reflect the back or
Hmm.
but especially if you're pregnant, so this way no spirit can try and get into your baby.
That's deep.
And that is yes. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Is to
It's
find out more here, you're very more superstitious than anything. Where they still do, especially the older ones, will focus more on the superstitions. The younger ones, obviously, are just. I don't think they're as into them as some of them.
mhm.
Than like obviously the older generation.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
that is what this is a good point. But isn't it funny that the world automatically goes to the Catholic belief system as a default?
Yep.
Yeah, that's also why anytime I experience anyone who has like different religion, I have no problem. I want to learn from them compared to what the internet tells me. Just
Mhm.
because people on the internet they can throw anything in there, but someone who actually practices it and goes, I definitely want to learn from them. I've even gone with some people to their churches. So I'm like, yeah, I'll see what your church is like. I'll see what you're learning. I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
Just because, especially when you meet someone, like over here, obviously it's more of a Buddhist religion, and some people are Shinto. So coming in here with like the Catholic belief, that's not going to do you any good, especially if they're not believing anything. If they're not believing what you're doing, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she's right. Like I was just talking about, with with the demons, everybody defaults to the Christian form of that. So Yeah, that's absolutely right. But you have to, well, you don't have to, but you should expand your knowledge base. There's you'll never learn it all. Nobody ever will, but at least you'll have some information in your back pocket if you ever need to bring it out for any reason. So,
Yeah, no, that is good because I was raised as a Baptist minister's daughter. So when
okay.
people are like, "You have to do it this way because of Catholic belief," and I'm just like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work for me. But
Mhm.
it's not. I'm willing to learn different ways, and learn different techniques. That's fine. But at the same time, if you're just going by one, because that's it. It's just you're not expanding your knowledge or your techniques and what could possibly work, especially the spirits. There's no rhyme or reason what's going to work for them.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I wish going in one thing would work for all of them. Obviously, it's not going to. So
Yeah.
it's like if I'm trying this technique, it's not working. Maybe I should try someone else's and see do I get better results. Not
Hmm.
everyone is going to have like the same results for things. So
Yeah. There's not an across the board standard for any of it. Yeah.
and it's interesting how many people are just like, oh, we don't work with other team members who don't have the same beliefs. And I'm like, well, this is why you're not getting all the potential out of that investigation that you could. If you're just
Yeah.
narrow minded and keeping it, we're going to try this technique. If it doesn't work, well, I guess it's not. I guess nothing's going to work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Give me a team of 5 or 6 people, all with different religious beliefs and all that would be ideal. That'd be great.
I also recommend. I love teams. I love talking to teams who have like a skeptic
Hmm.
because they work the hardest to prove anything that happened is not
Yeah.
paranormal. I'm like, this is what you need
Right.
because they will work. Like I said, they work the hardest to prove you wrong. They're like,
Yeah.
nah, we're not going to think this is paranormal. This has to be this has to be the reason. Which is good going to an investigation, especially doing residential. That's not their mind never jumps. That's not the first thing they jump to is, oh, I finally caught something paranormal. They're like, no, hold on.
Yeah.
What's the other answer to this?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love skeptics because even as investigators,
Try to debunk everything
we
they
are
do.
we are all skeptics to a certain degree.
Mhm.
Otherwise we wouldn't be looking for answers. So yeah, I'm a skeptic. We're all skeptics. Have to be.
Yes, we're networking with different beliefs, cultures, religion is key. Yeah, it
It
also
is.
expands your, like we were saying before, it expands your horizons of knowledge and techniques. But it's same, yeah, it just. But also, if you go somewhere, especially if you do a residential, that is one thing you should be asking is what is your religion? Just because I mean, if you also try, you can also say, hey, I try it this way. I think it's gonna work. How do you feel? If they don't
Mhm.
feel like it's gonna work, it's not. And if it's one of those things where like, "Yeah, we have total faith in you, Sean, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
It might work, but if it's one of those things where they're like, especially over here with the Buddhists, if they don't if they don't believe, like I can't just go into their house and use sage. First of all, you can't even buy sage over here
Oh,
because it's they don't believe in going in and saging the house. But if it's one of those things where if I go into a house, I start saging someone's house, they're gonna be like, "What is this crazy woman doing?" And I was like, I compare it to if I went to your house, brought in some dandelions, you know,
mhm.
started with the dandelions, and you're like, "What is this crazy girl doing?" I'm like, "It's not gonna work," because they're just like, "Yeah, I don't know what she's doing."
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to have at least some partial belief in that for it to work anyway. What, Danielle? You writing a book tonight or what? Yeah, I mean, she's right though. Yeah, that's kind of my one of my biggest things right now is everybody's chasing what I like to call that fortune and glory, and you got to realize that it probably never going to happen. And if you're in this for those reasons, just get out. Let the adults come in. You guys all just get out.
That is one thing that I will say irritates me is, like she was saying, people just do it for the TikTok live, so the
Yeah.
views and all this and that. But one thing that irritates me is when someone it's that's fine if you rented a place to investigate that everyone more knows about, like the Monroe
Mhm.
House, whatever. But if you go to an actual residential, please do not go live. I hate it
No.
when teams do. It's one of my pet peeves when teams do that. They're like, "Well, they said they were okay with filming." Okay, there's a difference in filming and going
Yeah.
live.
Yes.
Filming, I can edit out anything that the owners are like, "I didn't," because I you don't know what's gonna come out.
Yeah.
If it's live, now the whole entire world knows there's not taking that back. But filming, if something comes up they don't want the world to know about and they tell you about it, you can edit that out.
Well, and that's why, I mean, on a residential investigation, if you have been contacted by someone to come into their home to try and get them answers, this is not a public thing. This Everything needs to be compartmentalized in your team, in your group. Any video that you might take, don't publish it anywhere ever. That's not for anybody else
Yeah.
except the people that called you in. None of that. Now evidence findings can be shared, but I think names and video and all that, don't put that anywhere. You give it to those people, keep a copy for yourself so you have something to use as reference in the future. But a residential investigation, that is a highly personal thing. That's why some of these TV shows, when they go to somebody's house and they're doing, you, that person just did it because somebody paid them some money. And again, chasing your 15 minutes of fame. Just stop. Just stop with your TikToks and asking people to send you llamas on TikTok. It annoys me.
Yeah.
I could write a book on things that annoy me in the paranormal.
Oh gosh, yes. I feel like everyone can.
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical I do everything to go left. Yes, that is one thing everyone should, because I feel like a lot of paranormal investigators immediately jump to everything being paranormal, and it's not. Like she was saying, door closing, and it was like, wow, I asked for a sign, and the spirit slammed the door, and the windows opened, and the breeze came through,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. And
or
that's what your
yeah, do
thrills,
not
your
use
enjoyment.
residential service for you or your
Yep.
enjoyment. Yeah, it's
If you
definitely
want,
that.
if you want to thrill, go buy rent a haunted location for the night. Don't use people's homes as your thrills and your fun. It's not meant to be fun.
What in the Sam and Colby? Yeah,
What the Sam and
exactly.
Colby? Oh my God! Perfect example of fame chasers.
Fortune and
Yeah.
glory. Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's where I get that from.
over here, they use more like Buddhist chants. They go in the middle of a room and do Buddhist chants, but they also do sea salt blessed by like a temple priest. You might get like a small bag of it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's like I said, they don't do sage. It has to be like sea salt or even like the Himalayan. It can't be like the regular. You can't use regular salt.
No throwing table salt around, huh?
Yeah, to them, you just throw table salt. They're like, I don't. She's just making a mess. I don't. Sea salt, on the other hand, yeah, to them, it's different. So that's also one thing they see. Sea salt, black salt, Himalayan, just not regular table salt.
Gotcha. Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, one thing she was asking earlier is, how is it? Find it. Yes. the harder in paranormal Japan, like going from the US to there. Yes, as I was explaining to Sean earlier, is over
Mhm.
here in Japan. So I was getting more involved with the paranormal community back in the United States. When I got to Japan, that's one of the first things I looked into because I'm like, I am going to be so big, and I want to get into the paranormal community. I want to dive into it. I want to be friends with everyone. I want to
Mm.
learn everything from them. I'm gonna go all these haunted locations with them, and I was sad to see that there is no paranormal teams here. There is no investigations you can book. Basically, if they think it's haunted, they're either going to leave it alone or board it up to the public because they're like, we'll just leave that spirit be. If they get
Mhm.
angry, we don't know what to do because
Mm.
we don't have demonologists over here, which actually might be good because I'm realizing that there's so many people claiming that title in the United States now with absolutely like no training and no research. They were just like, I woke up one day, they're like, you know what? I'm a demonologist,
Yep,
that's what I'm going with.
absolutely.
And I don't even know what makes them think they're qualified to say that. And also, that's also I kind of wish Kenneth was back in here and be like, yeah, there's all this training and stuff. That's also when we do have someone go through training. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and tell people for you to be able to say that how much training you had to do or research. So you can't just wake up one day, or even if they take an online course
Hmm.
that barely covers anything,
Yeah.
get that
Yep.
stupid certificate at the end, and they're just like, "You
Yep.
see, I have this certificate from this online school. It says I'm a demonologist, so I can now go by demonologist." I'm like, from someone who's got curious and taken one of those classes, it barely covers the basics, let
Oh, I'm
alone
sure.
anything more into it.
I'm sure. But yeah, that's what a lot of people have done. Yeah. Call yourself a demonologist, put it on your little banner at the conventions, and you got interviewed for 20 seconds on Ghost Adventures, put a little Ghost Adventures logo on your banner. Yeah. Another thing that frustrates me. There's a lot.
Yeah, I realize that. I see a lot of people. I'm just like, there's some people I see barely have investigated. All of a sudden, demonologists, and I'm like, why? Why are you claiming this?
Yeah. Trying to be recognized.
Yeah, but over here also, they're if they do anger a spirit, I think the only thing they know what to do is I'm going to build a shrine dedicated to it, and hopefully it is appeased enough that it's not going to wreak havoc in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting way of doing things over there. That's why I love learning about different religions and some of their practices. That's
Yeah,
interesting to see how people do things.
they try to avoid it. Like we don't have over here. Like if someone passes away, there's no estate sales or even thrift shops. You can't go buy like household goods or anything or house decorations or whatever. It's because they believe once they pass, all their items should be seen within the family.
Mm,
It's if you go to a thrift store, it's not like Goodwill. You can
right.
only buy electronics and clothes. That's the only thing. Everything else, there's like a taboo where they just in case of attachments, which makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And which makes total sense because a lot of people who needed house cleansings turns out it's because they go to Goodwill and they always collect a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
they bring it in. They try to avoid that here. They're like, you can't buy that here. That's why at thrift stores, like I said, only like electronics and clothes. And that's basically it.
It almost sounds like Japan is a step ahead of the game, but a step behind at the same time because
Yeah.
they don't want to go there. And I get it. I mean that's the culture.
So, so that forest there, you have to be careful just because that place is so sacred over there that some people say, "Oh, you can't hike in there anymore." For from my understanding, I know people who have still gone in there, so it's like I think you can still go in there. That's
Mm.
because a lot of people say they still can, but you have to be careful. That is why Logan Paul is no longer allowed in Japan
Yep.
because he went into that forest. He videotaped and published him finding a body, laughing at it, and I guess also touched his foot.
Mm.
He is not allowed to come back in Japan now because of it. So, all I'm going to say, if you go into that forest, be careful what you do because they do not. That's one thing Japanese do not play around with.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to go there. As much as part of me would, I don't think I could bring myself to do it.
What's funny about that forest is it is a perfect example to them of yin and yang. Because there's that part of that forest you know about, the bad part of the forest.
Hmm.
What's interesting though is there's no bugs, there's no animals, there's not even birds chirping, so it's really eerie quiet.
Mm.
Trees will grow in weird directions, not straight up, but they might like start turning and curving and swooping as they grow. Even scientists are like, I don't know why they're not some of these things just not growing straight up. But there's also another part of the forest that's the complete opposite, where the locals, because obviously I see those videos too, where the locals are just like, yeah, over in this part, we almost hike daily because it's the most serene place you can go. But they
Mm.
also know as locals kind of know where to go. They're just like, yeah, we hike this area. And just by the way, we get to this fork here. Don't go to the left because that goes into the part you don't want to go in. Stay to the right. If you want a
Mhm.
peaceful, beautiful, serene hike. So it's
Mm.
definitely, yeah, that forest is super weird. I don't know if it has its own portal open there or it's on a ley line or what's going on over there. But like I said, it's like night and day, two different parts of that forest.
Hmm.
So I can't say the whole entire
Interesting.
thing is not the whole entire thing has that feel to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
developed a reputation.
I've seen it. Yes.
Yes, just put a map on there and put a color in all the states you've been to, as seen in Iowa. Oh my gosh, Danielle.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting things over here. Like I said, though, be very careful when you enter there because that is one thing Japanese do not play around with.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, there is also for them haunted items. I think you can send it to certain temples here because there is like an Inari or shrine. I don't know if there's that doll island here. I think that's more. I know the one in
Mm.
Mexico. We do have our own haunted doll in northern Japan, which I was just recently talking about. I'm surprised no one has based a horror movie based off of this doll, a Kiku the doll in northern Japan. It's still you can still see it in one of the temples up north. You can still see it in the temples up north. I'm surprised no one's made a horror movie based off of this, due to the fact that so Kiku she was given over 100 years ago. She was purchased by a 17-year-old who gave it to his 2-year-old sister. 2-year-old sister got very sick at the time, but she also treated this doll like her best friend, took it everywhere, just like how a little girl treats a doll, their best
Mm.
friend. Hold this thing everywhere with it, treat like her best friend. Unfortunately, Okiku, because that was the name of the little girl, so they named the doll after the little girl.
Mm.
She got sick. They say either malaria or yellow fever. I think I read said more than likely it was probably yellow fever due to the time and the location. Either way, she passed away. It was not very pleasant. She died scared and she was having a hard time breathing when she was passing away, but she was holding on to the doll.
Mm.
And the laws back then, they wanted to bury the doll with her, but the laws back then prohibit you can't do that. So it's very common here in Japan that Japanese households will have like a shrine dedicated to their past loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously had one for her, and they decided to put her doll, her best friend, in there. Named it after her. Named it after her too. They said so when they first got the doll, she had like a medium bob length, medium bob haircut. They say every year that they'd have some paranormal activity in her house, but every year around the day she died and her birthday, the paranormal activity would pick up. Now, someone asked me, they're just like, well, did it actually pick up, or is that one of those things where they were thinking about her and felt like it picked up? That's a good question. I don't know. This, like I said, it was over 100 years ago, so who
Right.
knows?
Mm.
But the weird thing is, so they looked at the doll. Like I said, the reason why I brought up her hair length is the doll hair started growing. So it went from medium, or it went from like shoulder length all the way down to the middle of her back.
Mm.
So of course they'd start giving her like trims and stuff like that. 20 years later of them, 20 years later after this first happened, the family was going to move, and they're afraid they're superstitious, so they're just like, if we move this doll far away, she's going to lose her magic. So they went to the monks at the temple and they asked them, talked to them about it, saying, would you take care of this? We don't want to take it far away. Its original home. They already heard stories about this doll, so they were excited. Like, yeah, give it to us. We'll take care of her. To this day, they say the monks have to take care of her and have to trim her hair. But what's interesting is why I also don't understand why people don't make a scary movie on her. Yeah, I don't think this ghost is. I don't think the haunted doll itself is malevolent. But however, horror movie wise, you can make it because she visits people in their dreams.
Mm.
This is how they also know that she wants their hair trimmed. Is she visits them in their dreams and tells them.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is, like I said, this doll is over 100 years old, but for some odd reason, recently, and its head and face is made out of porcelain. Its mouth is starting to slowly open, and a monk say they're looking into the open mouth, and they said what would be gums or her gums. They call it gums, even though it is porcelain. So it's here porcelain gums. What looks like baby teeth are starting to come through.
Interesting.
They can't explain it because it literally looks like baby teeth. They're seeing more and more of like what looks like baby teeth, but they cannot explain that either. And I was like,
Mm.
how come no one makes a horror movie of a doll that can also visit you in your dreams? Like, oh, you think you're safe? Here I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Annabelle kind of cornered the market on haunted doll movies, but
Yeah, yeah.
she said nope.
Also, virus, hell no. I keep trimming the doll's hair because it is growing. Yeah, well, they don't know. They don't even know why it's growing. They tested it; it's made out of human hair, but it still doesn't explain why it's still growing. It's like if you bought a wig, even wigs made out of real hair. They don't know why the hair keeps growing, even to this day.
Mm. It's wild.
They used to make dolls in Japan with using human hair. They quit doing that a little while ago because strange things could happen to human hair. That's why they made dolls now out of synthetic hair.
Mm.
Plus, real hair is used by wigs now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But yeah, there's a market for real hair.
Yeah. Well, and you got to think too, back, 100 plus years ago, it was easier to get human hair than it was to try and get synthetic hair, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So, someone gets their hair cut, use that hair and put it on a doll.
yeah.
So, makes sense.
It, it has to be treated, right?
Yeah.
Real hair.
Otherwise, they
So
get gross.
yeah, or bugs grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
has to get treated. Now synthetic hair is easier, but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's
so
also like I was telling them earlier, Reed, there is no paranormal teams. Like when I first looked into a paranormal community, I found it
mm-mm,
was just you in Tokyo.
mm-mm,
There is no other teams here, and it's because
mm,
they're more skeptical. I don't think they know what to do when it comes to
yeah.
the paranormal.
They'd
Besides build a shrine or leave it alone.
yeah, they'd rather deal with it like that's your road. This is my space. As long as you don't come in my space, I'm fine with that. But
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then again, they're more superstitious. Like our paranormal friends came to Japan, so I took them to the biggest cemetery in Tokyo. we had um we had friends come with us when we came home. Not with me, with them actually. And because they're Americans and they didn't want them tagging along. Actually, they felt really annoyed that I took them there, so they were more mad at them than me. So my son said, I got to get rid of them. I said, wait a second, wouldn't it be better if I crossed them over? And he said, no, we got to get rid of them. So I didn't want to argue with him, so I let him get rid of them. But I felt really sad because I think they wanted help more than him getting rid of them. So he got rid of them and sent them back. I said, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, right? Because everybody in my family is really spooky. All my children are all empaths. They're all clairvoyants, and uh, two of them will have something to do that. My daughter, she says no, not gonna do it, but she knows that she sees it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he wanted to get rid of it, and I said he did a huge ceremony on the first floor in the entrance because they were at our door, and they couldn't come in because we have certain things put in our front door so they can't come in so they can't come through the threshold. But yeah, so he sent them away. He said, I should have just crossed them over. It's easier for me to do that. He said, no, we don't want you to do that. You gotta send them away. Okay, I'm not gonna argue.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, what can you do, right?
Yeah. That's.
You, but that's how they deal with it in this country. They chase them away. They don't try to help them. So I think they wanted to be crossed over. That's what I think. And they were really lonely
Mm-hmm.
because I had a spirit in the cemetery said, I want you to stay with me, like die here in the cemetery so you can come with me so so I don't feel lonely. I
It.
felt really yeah, it's the most saddest feeling I've ever felt. I told I'm sorry I can't do that.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, it's the most saddest feeling I've ever felt in my whole life. I felt like my stomach came all the way down to my legs. Uh, that feeling when you get that really lump in your throat and
It's
you
in the
really
pit of
don't
your
know what.
stomach, and yeah.
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 I would say that we are the closest thing to a paranormal team. We have
Mhm.
searched for more. We have not found more. If you do find
Mm-mm.
any, they are not public. Just because here in the United States, a lot of people say, "Yeah, my HR knows what I do." They say as long as I don't bring up, in any videos or anything
Mm-mm.
about where I work or have my logo on the T-shirt or any
Mhm.
logo of my work in the
Mhm.
background of any of the videos. I'm fine. They can't do anything. That's my private life. Here, that's not true. Is if they find out you're into the paranormal, or even if they think you saw a ghost,
Mm-hmm.
you can be terminated.
Yeah. They'll
That's
can you
also
from
why.
your job.
That is also
Wow.
why they're not public.
Yeah.
Even Japanese pilots who said, "I think I saw a UFO." One or two things that happen. They're either now desk, working
Mm-hmm.
at a desk, or they're early retirement, basically, right after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's why, as far as Amanda does, I don't see she tells anybody what she does, but I never say what I do, even though I see a lot of stuff. I can do a lot of stuff. Yeah, I don't tell anybody. It's just not the norm thing to do, or it's not the wise thing to do.
Right.
I just don't want to. Yeah, you
I get
just don't want to. Yeah, either do that or you. If you do that, you might be tossed in a loony bin, and I that's not what I want to be done with me. So
No,
yeah,
of course not.
I just
Like,
don't say anything.
like I
It's
said,
what.
we have searched, so it's not because we haven't searched.
Yeah.
They either don't exist or they're not public. Even if you do find, because people are just like, "Well, I thought I saw a video," but then people are just like, "Yeah," but if you think about it, if you actually go back and look at anyone who does post a video, they're either behind a camera, so you
Yeah.
don't know who they are, or their face is blurred, or they're wearing a mask. A lot of them wear
Mhm.
masks; they're not recognized
Yeah.
just because they cannot enter their public lives.
Right.
We reached out to people. All I got was ooh, hoo, 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 and that
Oh, at
was
least
the
you
end.
got that. They usually don't respond to me.
Yeah. At least I got ooh, hoo, 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 and that was it. And that
There
was
is
all.
some people who have made a living off of telling the urban legends, or
Mm-hmm.
made books about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have reached out to them, like, well, how come they're more public with that? And I'm like, I don't. I think if you talk about the stories of the urban legends, I think it's more storytelling here that
Yeah.
brings an actual paranormal to them. Like, I
Yeah.
think I know to the paranormal world in the United States, urban legends goes hand in hand with
Yeah.
paranormal. Over
Yeah.
here, the urban legend tales are just that storytelling.
Yeah.
Right.
So they don't consider, even if they do make a book or write books about the urban legends of Japan, it's not to them paranormal. It's
No.
them
No.
telling stories.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
they'll
that's
never. They'll never. They'll never. They'll never admit it's paranormal. They'll never admit it. No way. They'll say, "Oh, that's an urban legend. Oh, that's a story." You know.
yeah.
Mm-mm. They'll never admit it. No way.
Mm.
And
Yeah, and that's one thing I say because they're like, well, I know this one author of the book. I'm like, yeah, but he doesn't consider himself paranormal. It's more
no.
storytelling. That's also why I tell people, like, majority. If you look at if you look at the horror movies made in Japan,
Yeah.
even the ones that not with a big budget
Mhm.
are beautifully done.
Mhm.
Even lower budget, it's creepy.
Yeah.
I think they're better than the American remake of it, who
It's more
Hollywood. But
creepy. It's
yeah,
more creepy. It's like they're made so well that you don't want to go to the toilet if you have to go to the toilet. They'll say you'll have to ask, "Can you come with me?" He
well, I've
goes,
seen
"Why?"
some horror movies that were made first in Japan and then Hollywood remade it with a bigger budget.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I still think the Japanese versions are better
Yeah.
because it is an art form to them. That's why I don't think they consider it paranormal. It's an art form of storytelling. Dealing with actual ghosts is another thing to them, and they're just they don't want even anything to
Yeah.
ghost
Yeah.
hunting.
It's more scary. It's more freaky. It's more ooh like this. So yeah, it has a freaky part to it.
They are. I do recommend if you can find like a subbed or dubbed version of a Japanese horror movie,
Mhm.
watch it. You will see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you have never seen one, it's another level. Even the lower budget, it'll still be creepier because they make it an art form, like I said, to make sure it is scary.
Right.
That's one thing. Like I said, going back to the forest, that is one thing they don't mess around with is
Yeah, they're
the
putting
forest.
care into it. Yeah.
It has this really good creepy ring to it. It's yeah, like the ring, jewel,
Juwan, yeah, I've seen that one.
and Sadako. Sadako versus Hanako. Sadako is a bathroom spirit, and a lot of spirits in Japan happen either in the bathroom or in a well or something like that. Yeah, it has this creep. It brings a creep back factor 100 notches, and it's just more crazier, more creepier. Yeah, not going there. It's just one of those. Like they're on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. Couple other ones are the Howling Village. But
That's actually 2 hours north of me.
yeah,
I'm still trying to find someone to go with me,
well,
just
I'll go with
because
you.
it's. I'm looking for someone to go. I'm definitely not going to go there alone. Not because of, well, just because of the reputation of it. Be-
No.
It's vacant now, besides maybe some squatters, but the Village, or in Japanese, you might find it the Inunaki Village, Howling Dog Village.
Yeah.
It was a town in the middle of the woods, in the mountains, that the outlaws of Japan built because they didn't want to live by Japanese law. The sign
Mhm.
is still there that says, beyond this point, the Japanese constitution, or basically the Japanese law, does not exist. So
Mhm.
anything and everything happened in this town. And I do mean anything and everything. Nothing was illegal. That's the whole purpose
Yeah.
of this town.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, like I said, not because it's just the reputation of it, but because it's the middle of the woods
Mhm.
in a mountain. So it's just in case accident wise, I don't want to walk alone.
Yeah, I don't
It's
blame you. That's crazy.
it's funny, because my husband, growing up, he didn't grow up not too far away from there. He said everyone knows about that place. That's when he was a child. When he went to elementary school, everyone knew about it, right?
Mm,
And um, do you want to go there? No, hell no. They said, right? But it's one of those things that turned out to an urban legend. Like all the kids knew about that place growing up. Everyone knows about every paranormal place in their own city where they grew up, or in their own village where they grew up. Everyone knows about it, right? And
mm,
anything paranormal, everyone knows about as a kid growing up in that area. So it's not unusual for them.
right.
Um, and my husband said, "Yeah, I know. My house was not too far away from there, but
Mm,
yeah, nobody dares to go in that area. It's just really freaky." But my husband was born close to that area on the Japan seaside, Fukuoka City. And yeah, there's so many paranormal places my husband knows that wants to take me, but we haven't had the chance to just pick up and go because it takes a little while to go there. You
mm,
have to fly there. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, you need a good 10 days holiday just to travel around because everything is so far away from everywhere else, right? And it's so secluded. Yeah, you have to take a little vacation just to go there and just to see all the different places. Even though it's a small island, it's just big enough that
right.
you need to rent a car and you need to just take time to travel to each area. It's
Mm,
just secluded. So they have a lot of crazy urban legends in Fukuoka, and a lot of crazy haunted places. As you know, Nagasaki was the biggest atomic bombing, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
but they have a lot of other places where um 24 Christians. First, the ship from the Spanish ship came, and then your Portuguese ship came to Nagasaki. So they brought the priests and they brought religion to Nagasaki. But um, a long time ago, the samurai only believed in Buddhism, right? And if
Hmm.
you're gonna believe in other religions, you're gonna be in a lot of scrutiny. So the samurai said, "Okay, you want to believe in Jesus Christ, you will die like Jesus Christ." So they crucified all the followers and the priests. So they all died on the
Wow.
cross. Yep, and
Wow.
yeah, and that place is really spooky haunted too. It's on
I
a
would
it's on
imagine so.
they make they do everything on a hill, okay, or on a steep hill or on a steep mountain. They kill they kill everybody on a steep mountain or on a steep hill for some reason. So yeah, that's what
Hmm.
happened there. And the crosses no longer exist, but some of the body parts, the bone parts, they had bones left over. So the followers who were Catholic, who didn't want to say anything, gathered some of the bones, and they're in the church in Nagasaki, and I've been there and I've seen them, and yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That
Yeah,
sounds very
yeah,
interesting at the same time.
yeah. There's a lot of things in Nagasaki that you know you don't talk about, but that's one of the things that um they did a lot of things like that. They did the same thing in Kyoto, and they crucified him on a big hill, but you can't get in there. It's supposed to be extremely haunted, more haunted than Nagasaki, but it's really creepy haunted in
Hmm.
Kyoto. And since Kyoto is the biggest Buddhist religion there, anything else, well, no, it's not
Yeah,
even heard. So
sure.
yeah, so the one in Kyoto is really bad. It's supposed to be horribly haunted. They even blocked it off so nobody could get in there. They got signs there, "Do not enter." But it's haunted. That's why they put the "Do not enter" signs. It's the regular haunted area. It says "Do not enter," right?
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
and
not tricking
apparently,
me.
it was so bad. It got so bad that the other parishioners from the Catholic Church nearby put up a huge Mother Mary statue and a huge Jesus Christ statue, and they studied it, and natural blood comes out, but they don't want to study it even further from there. So
Hmm.
the eyes started bleeding, the hands started bleeding because they were like this, right? And the hands started bleeding. And Mother Mary, I think her hands is like this, I think, or she's like this, one of the two. But yeah, their hands started puddling up and getting blood coming out of their hands and out of their eyeballs, and nobody wants to study it because they're so afraid of it.
Huh.
Even the scientists don't who believe just the science are so afraid of urban legends they don't want to go there. So
Yeah, I don't
there
blame
you
him.
go, right?
She mentions the Christianity here, and I will say this to me is funny,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there is one of the biggest hoax in Japan happened
Mhm,
in northern Japan in Hokkaido.
mhm,
Not what's it called? Providence? Is that what it is here?
mhm.
Hokkaido Prefecture. Sorry,
Yeah.
prefecture is basically there's like it's their version of states. So, so in the Hokkaido Prefecture in the town of
Mm,
Aomori, there is a tomb. What they call it, Jesus's tomb.
mhm.
And I know Christians get mad at me when I when I tell this because they're just like,
Mhm.
that's obviously not him. I'm like, look, I don't write the urban legends.
Nope.
Found them.
Nope.
And I'm like, I understand, but it's funny. So back to the Jesus' tomb.
Mm-hmm.
What they once believed back then is they think the the real Jesus was buried there. They said what happened was it wasn't him that died on the cross, but one of his brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after that happened, because I think when Jesus did his tour when he's still alive, Japan was on the list of places he went.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Possibly, I don't know, because even people say, yeah, well, there is a gap in the Bible of people don't know what he did. And I'm like, so possibly.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Sure.
they think he came to Japan,
Yeah.
and they think afterwards he came back to Japan.
Yeah.
And there's actually two tombs there. It doesn't say which one is his body, but the
Mm-hmm.
other one. So when this guy came to this town, he had an ear and a lock of hair.
Yeah.
The ear supposedly belonged to the brother who took his place on the cross. The
Mm-hmm.
hair, the lock of hair is supposed to be his mother Mary's. That's what he said.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
believed it. So they believed it was Jesus. He came, he changed his name, and he became an onion farmer.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
Got married, had children. So they believe when he died, that was the real Jesus. Obviously now it's still a huge tourist spot. But even now, the locals say, yeah, obviously it's a hoax.
Yeah.
Most of them believe now it's a hoax.
Right.
But that's funny. That's what they call that one of Japan's biggest hoaxes. They actually believed for the longest time
Huh.
that was Jesus.
They have a lot of stuff like that. In fact, I heard of it a couple of times where he did have followers, and he did have a pilgrim, and he did travel throughout Japan too. I heard that also.
Yeah, that's just the saying is I don't know. We don't
Yeah.
know for sure.
Yeah.
Some people say I can see that possibly. Other people are like I don't think so. I'm like, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
That's just a belief, okay?
Right.
We don't actually know.
But believe what you want to believe, but understand this. This is what happened. This is where his tomb is, and it's in the most freakiest area
Yeah.
where a lot of urban legends come from, and a lot of really freaky stuff happening in that one particular area. Because not too far away from there is a river that represents going to heaven. So everyone crosses this river, walks along this river going to heaven. That's where you're supposed to wet the lips of the person who died, so they won't be so thirsty or walking on these pebbles going to heaven. And apparently there's one shrine, you could call it a shrine, where this one person helps people whose relatives have died for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, but apparently you can go there. You can ask to speak to your dead relatives there. That's only one place there, and it's near that same area where that tomb is. It's in this. It's just that. Yeah, there's a lot of freaky stuff in that one area, and that's one area we can go to.
Hmm.
I don't know how much money it costs. I don't think it's that expensive, but I think it's only like maybe $100 or so, like that. So, um, it's not that expensive. You can go there. You can ask to talk to your dead relatives.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a Buddhist, not a priest, but something like that, right? She's a clairvoyant, and that's all she does is talk to dead relatives for you.
Basically, clairvoyant, like she was saying, is she can.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just really creepy, and a lot of people do go there because they're lonely and they want to talk to their dead relatives.
Sure.
That's the last right. Yeah, because
Anyways,
nobody else will do it. Nobody else will
anyways,
do it
Sean,
for you.
thank you so much for joining us. I know it's getting late for you. We definitely
Oh, of
appreciate
course.
it. We'll have to
Yeah,
I
get with you
appreciate you
on.
having me. I was really
We'll have
excited when I got your message. So yeah, I appreciate you.
we'll have
yeah,
to get with you about coming for a part two.
yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to.
All right. Anyways, everyone out there, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.